Unfortunately, the continued violation of Israel is due to the lack of accountability. Israel should have been punished not only for its attacks on the UN, whether it's the UNIFIL in Lebanon or the UNRWA in Gaza and in the rest of Palestine. It should have been punished a long time ago for all of these actions. However, Israel has enjoyed impunity as a result of the full support of a number of countries headed by the United States, which not only gives immunity to Israel in the United Nations system, but also continues to support Israel with weapons, with money, and with everything that is needed to continue the genocide in the Gaza Strip and the huge, significant violations in Lebanon. This is why Israel has been attacking the UNIFIL forces since the beginning of its offensive on Lebanon. The UN has warned and expressed its condemnation and concern a number of times now since this has started, but it's not stopping at all. Now there has been a suggestion within the UN General Assembly to maybe suspend or downgrade Israel's status in the UN as a result of not only the genocide in the Gaza Strip, but also the lack of respect of the UN. Israel has been showing clear animosity towards the United Nations agencies, and the reality is, as long as there are no consequences for its attacks on UN agencies, these attacks are going to only continue and grow. We also heard recently that Israel has enacted a law that stops the operations of the UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for the Palestinian Refugees. They have stopped it in areas under its mandate. This is a very dangerous action, and it actually contributes to the starvation of our people in the Gaza Strip.
And Professor, you talk about a potential threat from the UN in downgrading Israel. Do you think they would care?
Well, the UN is composed by a number of states. The Security Council obviously is controlled by the very powerful permanent 5 members: UN, US, France, UK, China, and Russia. So there is nothing much that you can expect from the UN Security Council. However, in the General Assembly, the atmosphere is very different. The General Assembly is composed mainly of nations from the Global South, nations that are anti-colonial, and they think differently, they act differently. I'm not saying that I have a feeling or an understanding that during the next weeks this might come. However, I know that there is an idea that is being discussed and examined within the United Nations. I think it's logical. I think it makes sense because certainly a nation that does not respect the United Nations order, the decisions of the Security Council, the decisions of the General Assembly, the operations. Israel, has not even allowed visas for most of the UN human rights system workers and experts. They almost boycott every mechanism in the UN, and they expect the rest of the world to abide by Israel's rules as opposed to Israel abiding by international law. So the idea is certainly an idea that can be conducted. We know that during apartheid South Africa, such an action was actually done. South Africa was unseated in the General Assembly. This idea is being examined right now, but I don't know whether it will be actually implemented now or later. It depends on the will of the majority of the states in the world. But the fact that the General Assembly is not controlled by the US and the Permanent 5 means that there is a much bigger chance of passing such resolutions through the General Assembly as opposed to the Security Council.
Okay, so we're talking about the General Assembly, but the international community as a whole has largely remained silent when it comes to the Israeli attacks on UNIFIL forces. Why do you think this is?
I think it's mainly, there has been criticism, so it's not totally silent. There has been criticism, there have been statements, but there has been no action. And the lack of action is actually what we have been used to. Israel is shielded by a number of powerful states in the world, which means that countries that want to take action against it in the international community usually hesitate to do so. Until they see that there is a strong movement in this direction. But I don't think that this silence will continue forever. I should maybe note here that attacking UN forces, peacekeeping forces, it invokes different types of responsibilities. On the one hand, it invokes individual criminal responsibility, which means that at some point, an Israeli official and decision maker might be held accountable for the attacks on UN forces because it is defined as a war crime, but it also invokes state responsibility. I believe that the UN would at a certain point invoke state responsibility on Israel, demand that Israel pays compensation for all of the losses that have been endured, whether by the UNIFIL itself, or by other agencies of the United Nations, including the UNRWA. Israel has destroyed most of the schools that belong to UNRWA, has attacked a lot of UN workers in the Gaza Strip, and until now, the United Nations has not been able to act upon that. We know that Israel is treated differently. Israel is treated as a state above international law, but I don't think this will stay forever. We know that the genocide case of South Africa versus Israel is now in process in the International Court of Justice. I think it will indeed bring about certain consequences on the state of Israel. We have the other important case, which is Nicaragua versus Germany. It invokes third state responsibility on genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Together these cases will bring about different understanding of the role of the United Nations when it comes to war crimes, crimes against humanity, and other grave violations of international law. So I think the future will be different. Yes, true, today we haven't seen consequences. The international community has been maybe, if not silent, but unable to act on its responsibility. But I believe that this will not be the case forever.